Ang ingay-ingay ngayon ng mundo, ang ingay-ingay ng ating bayan, iba't ibang naratiba. Depende kung sino ang iyong kausap. Hindi ko nagkakaisa doon sa issue ng korupsyon. Ang tanong, sa gitna ng lahat ng ito at sa ating pagnanais ng pagbabago, saan tayo dapat magsimula?
First and foremost, at million na ang nagsabi nito, billion tao na nagsabi, you start with yourself, Kuya Boy. Yung self-governance, di ba? So before you tell anyone to change, you change. But the reality is, we keep saying we want to change, but dun lang sa hindi tayo komportable. So kung komportable ako na nagda-drive ako sa biking lane, kung komportable akong hindi nagbabayad ng tax, komportable ako na ako VIP parate, what do I want to change? Ay yung corrupt, yung saan ako hindi VIP. So, the change has to start with you. And it has to be a real transformation, di ba? It has to be, yung batas para kay Kuya Boy ay batas din kay Alan, batas din kay Juan de la Cruz. Ang problema, Kuya Boy, yun yung mahirap. Mas madali yung, ano ba rally ngayon? Ang OFW ay hindi tinatax doble. O, sama ako doon. Sinong hindi galit sa level ng corruption ngayon sa Ghost, Kuya Boy? I mean, no-brainer yon. Pero yung tunay na pagbabago, nandun din sa mga mahirap baguhin. May sumulat nga ng article si Jeremiah Bellica, sabi niya, ako ay anti-corruption. Bakit? Kasi hindi ako nagdadaya sa exam. Kasi hindi ako nagsisinungaling sa kapwa ko. Kasi hindi ko niloloko misis ko. Basta't ang dami niyang sinulat na pag inisasa mo, meron obvious na tama to. Pero yung iba, ouch, ouch, ouch.
Okay.
Diba?
You made some very controversial declarations. Dalawa ang aking naalala. Isa na dito ay yung naglatag ka sa isang mong statement na lahat naman tayo may kasalanan. Ang tanong ko ay, napakalalim na ng issue ng corruption dito sa ating bayan, na kung iisa-isahin ito ng mga hearings ng Independent Commission at pupuntahan natin lahat ng nagkasala in the context of corruption, parang hindi mo alam kung saan mag-uumpisa at saan magtatapos. Given that, what is your view?
Well, Kuya Boy, meron kasing yung personal repentance. So, repentance yung pinanggalingan, talked about it, no? At meron yung corporate or community repentance, di ba? So, for example, kung nasa Singapore tayo ngayon, at isa kang minister na nangurakot, aside from siguradong huli yan, yung repentance mo personal, yung pagsoli mo, ikaw ang magsusoli nung ninakaw mo, makukulong ka. Napakasimple nun. Bakit? Kasi yung sistema, yung tao, yung personal at community-wise, core value, yung integrity. Okay? Pero many countries, hindi lang Pilipinas, many countries around the world, no? Meron din community or corporate repentance kasi the culture allows it. So when I said that we're all guilty, I didn't mean we're all guilty of the same thing. I didn't say we're all equally guilty of being the most guilty sa corruption. What I'm saying is whether konting cheating, stealing, lying sa asawa, lying sa barkada, lying sa magulang, lying sa BIR, whether it's cheating, daya ng konti sa exam, daya ng konti sa taxes, wherever pandaraya, di ba? Pumasok ka ng 8:30, sinulat mo sa time card mo, 8 a.m., so cheating, stealing, lying, nandaya, nagnakaw. So, may nagnakaw ng 1 billion na obviously dapat parusahan isole. May nagnakaw ng 1 million, whether private o definitely dapat mo isole. Pero yung nagnakaw ng paperclip, nagnakaw ng isang bond paper kasi nang mamadali ka, yung ninakaw oras mo. So, when you're talking about healing your land and praying to God, kailangan yung both individual or personal at corporate. And I really believe, Kuya Boy, we're not only talking about a political problem.
Yes.
So whether we say it's a spiritual problem, which I believe, or it's a problem of values. So, kasi ano po boy, ang tagal ko na, 1992, nasa gobyerno na ako, ano? So, as you age, you hope you're not getting older, you hope you're getting wiser. And you also become more honest not only with yourself. So, dalawa yan, Kuya Boy. Either you accept your own lies. Di ba, nagiging arrogante ka, ako na lang tama, ako lang pwede. Pwede lang revolusyon kung ako lang. Kung ako mamumuno. Kung hindi, walang mangyayari dyan. Mali ka parate, tama ako. Or you're also humbled and you start being a little bit more honest, not only with yourself, but with everyone else na, you know what, kahit ako maging mayor, kahit ako maging BIR, kahit ako maging presidente, kung tayo lahat hindi magbabago, walang pagbabago. So I think it was, pati yung statement ko na what if, it was an honest at kasama sarili ko. So it was partly a wish, and alam kong suntok sa buwan, but I think 20 years ago, pag sinabing resign lahat, sabi, ba't ako magre-resign? But ngayon, I think I'm honest enough that, yes, I think Alan Cayetano is part of the solution to the country's problem, but I'm not arrogant enough to say na hindi rin ako part of the problem. So kung magiging solusyon is one term, lahat ng incumbent ngayon, wag munang tumakbo. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng Kuya Boy, ng what if, yun yung part ng an honest conversation.
Right.
Diba?
Oo. Anong reaksyon mo sa naging reaksyon doon sa iyong what if?
Halo-halo, Kuya Boy. Kasi on one hand, it's an honor na on a Sunday afternoon, mag-post ka, biglang Sunday night, Monday, who's who, nagre-react, lahat pinag-uusapan. Nakakagalit din pag twist o binabali. Kasi sinasabi nila doon, parang pag nag-resign daw lahat, ede nakalaya yung mga kurakot. May kolumnista pa na very kilala at credible na sinabi it's a may agenda para protektahan yung mga kurakot. There's claiming to be political analyst at mga players na halos yun din ang sinasabi. So, nakakagalit kasi nga alam naman natin lahat, Kuya Boy, pag nasa power ka, mas madali mong depensahan sarili mo. Whether guilty or innocent. Pag hindi ka in power, mas madaling ikulong, di ba? So, may konti ding ganito na ba mundo ngayon na ganun? Kasi dati, Kuya Boy, ang hirap mag-twist eh. Kasi ma-fact check o mako-call out ka. But ngayon, napaka-segmented na as long as natutuwa yung sarili mong segment,
Okay.
di ba? It's easy to, On one hand, I feel the confusion of this generation. No? I'm not talking about the young people. I'm talking about all of us who exist in this generation. Kasi dati, there's your opinion, my opinion, good and bad, majority, minority. Ngayon, what's good is that there's 100 million Filipinos, there can be 100 million opinions. But there's so much confusion kasi paano tayo mag-uusap man lang na may sasabihin ka, babaliin ko, sagot ko, babaliin. Yeah.
Oo. At magkakarinigan. Maraming tao are invested, are engaged dito sa lahat ng kontrobersiyang ito. From where you are, may pupuntahan ba ito?
Kuya Boy, ako naniniwala that God gives crossroads. There's always opportunity, there's always danger.
Okay.
Diba? So, pinayagan ng Panginoon mangyari yung ghost. Bakit? Kasi may free will tayo, may choice tayo. Pero pinayagan niya ma-expose. So ngayon na na-expose, anong gagawin natin? Diba? Will we find real solutions? Will we really look at ourselves in the mirror and say na Alan is good here, bad here, so here, so magbago na tayo? Kaya nga we're talking about, sa English mas madali, Kuya Boy, kasi iba yung change, iba transformation. Sa Tagalog kasi dinadagdagan lang natin ng tunay na pagbabago. But iba pa rin yung real change, yung transformation. So, people who study history, let's say Singapore was very much like the Philippines. Mas marami pang challenge kasi not only was it racial, religious, yung wala silang resources, yung problema nila sa Malaysia, yung corruption was also cyclical na ibabaksak din sila, no? But if you look nagkaroon ng hindi lang change after change after change. One day, they were transformed eh. So ako, I can see the transformation. I remember the days where mas maraming matapobre. And pati may pobre din na matapobre din. Hindi lang mayaman ang matapobre. But now, I see Filipinos appreciating Filipinos, di ba? I see Filipinos not distinguishing between OFW na super yaman at OFW na kasambahay. So, dati, ang human rights para sa mayaman lang.
Mhm.
Pag ikaw mahirap at pumayag ka maging domestic helper, ay wala kang karapatan. Kung ikaw prostitute, sorry, wala kang karapatan magsabing no. Lahat na lang yes ka. Hindi totoo yun. Di ba? So, nakikita ko naman yung mga pagbabago. Pero, Kuya Boy, yung transformation that, yung madalas sabihin ng mga magulang, anak, para sa'yo to. Tapos yung anak naman parang, ngayon, ikaw na yung tatay, ikaw na yung lolo. Nasaan, kailan? Di ba? So, but, I think the worse the crisis, the bigger the opportunity.
The short of the long thought that I have right now, nung sinabi mong Singapore, aware, we need a Lee Kuan Yew. Okay, of course, we're not 3.5 million people. We are 115 to 120 million people. Ang naririnig nating sense ngayon ay, kaya nagtanong ako kung may pupuntahan ba ito. Dahil si Lee Kuan Yew, nagkaroon din ng kanilang version of truth and an independent commission na ipinaalam niya sa buong mundo na hindi siya natatakot magpakulong doon sa mga corrupt, including members of his own family. Tanong, Alan, meron bang makukulong sa iyong analysis, sa iyong pagtingin, sa iyong assessment? Are there people who are going to go to jail because of what is happening?
Definitely may makukulong. So the two questions now is one, mahahanap at makukulong ba yung mastermind?
Yes.
Pangalawa na siguro yung dami ng makukulong. But I also think it's also the wrong question. Because if we've never jailed a high-ranking official in the Philippines, then baka nga pag may nakulong sample kasi yan, baka wala nang gumaya. We've jailed the sitting president.
Yes.
And sabi nung iba, hindi, nakakalaya din. Hindi po, in a sitting president situation, it was a pardon. Yes, nakalaya, pero hindi totoong na-reverse nung korte. We have jailed senators, of course, nakawala. We have jailed, etc. No? And this has happened with Indonesia and Korea. But going back lang, Kuya Boy, sabi mo, Lee Kuan Yew, leadership 100% matters. Pero I don't believe necessarily you need a Lee Kuan Yew for 20 years, di ba? But you need talaga an honest-to-goodness desire by a majority of your community, maging barangay yan, maging bansa, to sustain the momentum for transformation. Hindi pwedeng parang, pag nandyan si Duterte, lahat tayo may disiplina. Pag nandyan si Pinoy, President Aquino, lahat tayo walang corruption or ibababa natin. Lahat tayo, pag nandyan si President Marcos, kung saan siya magaling, dito tayo. Kasi FBR, dun tayo magaling. Then, pag wala na, so hindi pwede, Kuya Boy, that when the cat is away, the mouse will play. Kailangan natin ng ilatag yung pundasyon. Tapos yung majority yun ang gusto, paluin mo talaga yung ayaw. Hanggang gumising ka isang araw na may transformation na talaga.
Very, very strong.
We're very near that, pero yun nga kasi Kuya Boy, whoever made billions, gusto nilang guluhin lahat to di ba? Okay. Gusto nilang hindi mahuli yung mastermind, gusto nilang guluhin. So we're every day, yung genuine yung desire, genuine yung galit, pero nandun din yung yung nagpapagulo.
Okay. Itong outrage, itong galit ba sa iyong basa, is this going to be sustained? Kasi may mga kritiko tayo na magsasabing, nako, pagdating ng panahon, pag hindi ma-sustain yung national conversation, yung galit na yun lilipas.
Well, like a hungry lion, I don't think lilipas nang hindi mo pinakain yung lion.
And right now, it is a lion.
It is a country full of lions. Okay. Ang problema nga, are you throwing the right meat? Or may para lang mapakain? And then, would the lion be just satisfied na mabusog na siya doon sa meat na tinatapon? Or gusto mo ba yung tunay na pagbabago o transformation? So sa akin, I would not even speculate, will it be sustained or not? Babalik ta rin ko. We have to sustain, maybe not the anger and outrage because we're not a people who are always angry. Di ba? Bumagyo nga, baha eh. Nandun yung galit pero may magpo-post, baha ka lang, Pilipino kami. Di ba? May magpo-post ng, ngayon may swimming pool na kami sa bakura namin. Di ba? So we're a people who are tolerant, happy, forgiving, resilient, di ba? And part of resilience, part of being resilient, Kuya Boy, is that hindi tayo nagtatanim ng galit. Hindi tayo pwedeng hindi magalit, pero hindi natin pwedeng itanim yung galit. So it's really more of how, as a people, we can sustain that momentum and that desire for change.
But the weak side to that is we forget.
Yes, pag komportable na.
Pag komportable na. Correct. Kanina you mentioned that vicious cycle na ayaw mo. Doon tayo lang sa usaping korupsyon. Marami ang nagsasabi na for as long as the system is there, a system that allows corruption to happen, kahit sino ang actors na involved ay patuloy pa rin na magaganap itong cycle of corruption. Your take?
100%. Why? Okay, kung tayo mga isda or tayo ay creatures ng tubig, di ba? Kahit anong linis ng isda, pag nilagay mo sa Pasig River, dudumi din yan. So, if you ask me, is it the system or the people? It's both, di ba? Baliktarin mo naman, di ba, na mga isda na talagang dinudumihan niya yung kanyang paligiran. So, lagay mo sa malinis, dudumi din. But we all know the environment matters. Why? The environment, hinihila yun, Kuya Boy. Magsama ka ng seminarista sa isang lugar na panay gambling joint, prostitution house, lahat ng masama nandun. Patirahin mo yung seminarista doon ng 6 months. Yung mabubuti, aalis. Pero yung naiwan doon, will sort of join the party because yun yung environment niya eh. Diba? So we cannot allow ourselves in the Philippines to accept that environment. We have to change it. Okay. So, leadership matters, sustainability, outrage, etc. But how do we channel it? So, let me answer it this way, Kuya Boy. Vicious cycles are never solved until you have a virtuous cycle.
Yes.
Because life is a cycle. Eh. Everything we do, relationships are cycle. So, if I keep saying na, Kuya Boy, bakit hindi magkasundo si Alan at Kuya Boy? Kasi si Alan is the sweetest guy. Until mangailangan ng pera, uutangan niya si Kuya Boy. Never naman babayaran. Maglalaylo, Kuya Boy, maaawa, mamimiss niya si Alan. Pag nagkita, magiging close, uutangan na naman siya. So unless I address that, bakit ba ako umuutang? Nagsusugal ba ako? Galante ba ako? Do I, instead of find someone I love, I pay someone to love me? So until I address that, Kuya Boy, it will be a vicious cycle. But once you address that, then it becomes a virtuous cycle. Di ba na, if I do need money, I pay you right away, or baliktad, I get on my feet, and ako pa magsabi, Kuya Boy, nilista ko ha, 20 years, babayaran kita. So whether it's an addiction to drugs, whether it's an addiction to love, whether it's, I keep saying business, pero may time ako sa family ko, then I get too much involved sa business, and I keep saying, well, yung kikitain naman sa family, that's a vicious cycle, Kuya Boy. Okay. We have to replace it with a virtuous cycle.
Gaano kalaking impact ang 2028 presidential elections dito sa mga nangyayaring ito?
Everything that gives us hope is an opportunity but also can be a distraction. So, halimbawa ngayon, yung sinabing galit sa corrupt, yes. But galit lang ba tayo sa ghost? Or galit din tayo sa nagsasmuggle? Galit din tayo sa nandadaya at sa mga taga-BIR na humihingi? Galit din ba tayo sa kumukuha ng vouchers, maging TESDA yan, TESDA, DepEd, tapos dinadaya? So, it's either we hate corruption and we want to replace it, or we only hate the corruption where it causes us damage or ano, di ba? So, ganun din. Sa 2028, there are going to be great candidates. And if we love the vicious cycle we're proposing, if we hate enough evil, kahit sino manalo dyan na magaling, we can replace that. Pero if we say, hindi, kasi ang galing ni Kuya Boy, all my hope is in it. But hindi perfect si Kuya Boy. And as you said, lagay natin si Kuya Boy, ganun yung sistema. And then usually kasi Kuya Boy, when the economics is working out, di ba? Napapabayaan mo na yung iba. So I can argue, kung hindi pa nahuli yung ghost at hindi pa sumunod-sunod yung baha, galit tayo sa corruption, pero walang outrage. Ganun din naman sa droga, no? Panahon ni President Duterte, di ba? Lahat tayo galit sa droga. But until yung may tao na drinambit niya tapos lumabas lahat ng kabahuan sa droga, nagkaroon ng outrage.
Right.
Pero it seems like a vicious cycle na magagalit tayo, ma-address ng konti, layon na pakain ng konti, di ba? So we have to, siguro sustainability, Kuya Boy, but transformation talaga. And other countries did it.
Yes.
In a lifetime, ha? In a lifetime.
Oo.
If you tell the Alan Cayetano, 15-year-old, Singapore or Japan, Singaporean hapon, even Korea, di ba? In a lifetime. When we were 10, of 20 years, even 20 years old, I'm 55 this month. No? When I was 20, kasi sabihin mo na, nood tayo ng concert, tapos sinong group, K-pop, Koreano, same ba yung tilit? Will you go to another country and pay for a ticket to watch, di ba? In the 60s ba o 70s, no? May mga nanis, yaya, ng mga taga Mindanao na taga Singapore. Pero ngayon, sasabihin mo ba na meron taga Singapore na ano? So, in a lifetime, whether it's economic, whether it's social, whether it's values, and when I say in a generation, dati that's 40 years, Kuya Boy, pero ngayon parang 10, 20 years can be a significant change na talaga.
You were talking about the house arrest, the embassy arrest of former President Duterte, at naglabas ng desisyon ang International Criminal Court na hindi siya pinayagan. Ano ang reaction mo?
Kuya Boy, two things, no? In everything I do and say, may political side yan eh. But hindi lahat ng problema sa Pilipinas ay political. Or kahit sabihin mo lahat ng problema ay political, wala mo sabihin mo hanap buhay, Alan, may epekto din yan sa politika, di ba? Ekonomiya natin, may sa politika. Pagkakulong kay may politika, pero may spiritual side yan, Kuya Boy. Di ba? May unseen and may seen, may natural at... So, yung kay President Duterte kasi, mas mabigat pa doon yung mga issues natin. Tama ba na isang presidente, ipadala mo sa ibang bansa? Tama ba hindi siya dito litisin? Tama ba na 8-year-old... So, ang nangyari doon kasi, Kuya Boy, nagkausap-usap ang mga senador, nag-usap kami na can we just steady sa humanitarian? And can everyone agree? Kaya pumayag kami na yung resolution na ipasa was much more watered down than our resolution so that nga, we can come to a point we agree. Nagulat na lang kami na nung nandun, biglang botohan, tapos biglang pumunta dun sa issue na guilty ba siya o hindi, kamusta yung... I mean, who of us do not feel for any victims? One side, yung biktima ng mga drug lords, biktima ng droga. On the other hand, may nadamay na inosente. Whether yan ay 70-year-old, 25-year-old, syempre mas maano pagbata, we all feel for them. Di ba? Pero kaya nga tayo nag-usap sa isang resolution na very, very basic. Sa former president, is in a foreign country, kahit sinong tao malulungkot, pag 8 years old ka, hindi ka basta mabisita, humanitarian. So, yun po yung hugot. Di ba? Parati mo tinatanong ako, Kuya Boy, anong baon ko?
Right.
Usually, ang baon ko, may problema, nahanap ako ng solusyon. But two things I realized later on. One is lahat tayo may hugot. Yun yung hugot namin ng mga nag-file ng resolution na yon. Pero pangalawa nga, yung sa baon ko, nakikita ko ngayon is that, you cannot blame everything on the devil. Di ba? So, if tonight, after natin to maglasing ako, naging alcoholic ako, choice ni Alan yon. Di ba? But there are also many things that there's a spiritual or there's a part that the devil... So, for example, no, if in the year 2000, pumayag kami magkakasino ang Taguig, tingin namin, hindi naging ganito BGC. Tingin namin, may plano si Lord, may plano ang devil. At may certain decisions that when you make it, it will go towards that. So, ganun din si Alan. So, plano ng devil, hindi ako maging tapat sa asawa ko. Plano ng devil, marami akong girlfriend, sirain yung pamilya. Hindi ako maging example sa ibang mga bata na nag-iisip na, does marriage still work in this country? So it's Alan, not the devil's, to decide every day, di ba? But the devil can put me in a situation na maraming magaganda dyan, maraming tempting dyan, na si Alan is alone with So decision ko dapat not to put myself in that situation. You know, I think the only situation I can think of in the Bible, no, where Christians should run is against temptation. Ang turo parati, do not be afraid. 'Di ba? If God is with you, who can be against you? Laban parati. Pero pag temptation, Kuya Boy, nagsasabi doon, 'di ba? Turn and run from it. So to relate it, Kuya Boy, whether we're talking about the case of President Duterte, which I admit is controversial, whether we're talking about anong mangyayari sa Blue Ribbon, whether we're talking about taxes, napaka-creative ng Pinoy eh. Sabi niya kasi doon sa post niya, malapit na ang bayaran ng tax. Tapos sinabi niya, hindi ba dapat kunin na lang natin yung account ni Zaldico at nung iba, doon na natin i-deposit diretso. So it was funny. But it was also for me tragic na, di ba na sometimes kailangan yung, hindi lang yung wag kang balat sibuyas, kailangan i-admit mo sa sarili mo na kahit, you know, the only way to please other people, don't do anything. If you're sure na tama at ginagawa mo ang trabaho mo, the criticisms will come, but wag mong pansinin. Ngayon, kung hindi ka sure na tama o makokorek ka pa, or pakinggan mo ng konti din yung criticism. Kung tama yung criticism, medyo baguhin mo. Pero kung talagang inuupa ka, hindi ka maintindihan or sadya or they want to put you down and you're doing what's right. So for example, imagine Kuya Boy kung alam kong ang Pilipinas ay babagsak ang ekonomiya, pero kailangan itaas ang VAT ng 1%. Sino naman si Raulong politiko magsasabing, at this time itaas ang VAT? But what if I knew that if we didn't do it, in 6 months to 2 years, babagsak ang ekonomiya? What? So that mabango ko, so that politiko, I won't say anything. But can you imagine someone saying now na, guys, alam kong naghinakit kayo, alam kong wala pa yung mastermind, alam kong sasakyan pa lang ang nabawi dito sa flood control, pero alam nyo ba, dapat itaas ang income tax ng 2%. Dapat ang VAT from 12.3. Talagang baka literally i-crucify ka ng mga tao. But what if you know in your heart, in your mind, you're 100% sure na the economy will dip in a year or will dive, not only dip, pero will you not do your job? No?
Yeah.
So, for me, Kuya Boy, some of it is part of the job, but some of it is controversial. Some is not about morality, diba? But it's just part of things that have to be said or have to get done. The last thing lang na I wanted to emphasize pala siguro, lost to because I want to be sensitive about it. That's why when we passed that resolution, nakiusap ako, Malacanang, please review. And yung iba criticize ako for saying we're doing this not only for the former president, not only for his family, but for the nation. I'm saying that for 2 reasons. Yung national pride natin na sinurrender mo, presidente mo. But more than that, Kuya Boy, we are a passionate people. We are a compassionate people. If he gets sick, or worse, if something happens to him there, may malaking gulo sa ating bansa. So that's what I meant. So I don't know how I can say it sensitively, di ba? But when you have a person who's 80%, and if it's true, di ba, that yung may signs na ng depression, tapos he doesn't want, tapos yung kung totoong nahulog at nagkasakit, if something happens there, people will blame someone. Will blame the government. And we don't know what will happen. Di ba?
Doon lang ako sa hugot at saka sa solusyon. Early on, dito sa controversial phase ng ating kasaysayan, you came up with the remand return idea, you came up with the archiving idea, naalala ko yun, at ilan pa, hanggang dumating ito doon sa snap elections, etc. Na para bagang ang tingin ng ibang tao ay si Alan Cayetano ay so engaged in this whole controversy, affairs, ika nga of the state, pero may dala siyang baon. And in the process, binubugbog ka ng mga taong nakakaunawa, pinipraise ka ng mga taong nakakaunawa at nakakaintindi sa'yo. Why do you care so much, Alan?
I I truly cannot give you an articulate or but siguro it's the way God made me, 'di ba? I mean, I don't know any other way, Kuya Boy. Sa akin either zero pakialam or buong buhay ko binibigay doon. So, wag lang magagalit sa akin si Lani, pero pag nag-away kami, that's what I tell her. I care so much about your opinion, 'di ba? And I care so much about you caring me. That's why, on the reverse, pag hindi ko nagustuhan, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin sa akin, wag basta magalit. Diba? So that's the kind of person, siguro, God made me to be, Kuya Boy. But also, I hate missing opportunities. I'm not the kind of person that will cry over spilled milk. Pag nangyari na, ano pang magagawa mo? But pag nasa harap ko na parang, Kuya Boy, alam ko pag sumali ka dyan sa singing, ikaw mananalo, tapos hindi ka sumali, di ba? Or, Kuya Boy, alam ko na pag tumakbo ka, panalo ka. I'm the type of the person until the last minute, tutulak kita. So when I see the problems of the country, everyone sees it. But everyone sees the opportunities differently. So pag may nakita kong, may opportunity for a solution, hindi ko mapigilan sarili ko itulak.
You go for it.
Yeah, but people who love me, including yourself, my sister, my wife, minsan sinasabi, it's not always for you to say something. And I have to learn that.
No. Patuloy ang aming pagdadasal para sa iyong kaligtasan, kalusugan, at kapayapaan. Maraming salamat.
I truly appreciate it kasi prayer moves mountains.
Yes.
Talaga.
Prayer does move mountains.
Hi, people of the Philippines and people of the world. Hit the button below and you will be subscribing to the Boy Abunda Talk channel on YouTube. Let's keep talking. Kaibigan, tuloy ang usap.